it really shook me for a long time, and it was really hard to kind of let go of that.
With an Oklahoma zone in focus, a class action lawsuit has now been settled after a Tulsa apartment complex suddenly shut down 3 years ago for being unsafe. Thanks for joining us. I'm Lori Fulbright.
And I'm Jonathan Cooper. Vista Shadow Mountain at 61st and Memorial was shut down by the Tulsa Fire Marshal due to apartments having no walls, exposed wiring, water damage, and mold. A class action lawsuit was filed by the tenants. Attorney Jared Burton took on the case for free, and now those former residents are getting paid.
We saw how awful the situation was. People were getting ready, over 200 families were getting ready to get kicked out on the street with no notice. And they wanted to help their neighbors, and they wanted to make sure that the landlords didn't get away with what they were doing. It's a relief that we've been able to help these people in some small way. And it's also a hope that by taking this on, that we perhaps prevent the next one from happening.
That settlement is for $400,000, which means each resident will get about $2,000.
Some of the people who used to live there tell us they are still dealing with the long-term effects of that ordeal. News on 6's Kristen Weaver is live with what's next for them. Kristen.
Well, Lori and Jonathan, tenants who were kicked out only had a couple weeks to find a new home. Now, thanks to nonprofits, they were put up in hotels and given clothes and food. But one tenant who lived there previously says the conditions were bad years before the place was shut down.
It all hits you at once, I feel like, and it's like, oh, I lost my house and my job and everything that was in there.
So Tara Garcia moved into the Vista Shadow Mountain apartments at the end of 2020. His apartment seemed okay, and he got a job there as a leasing agent. He started having some major flooding issues, and when the fire marshal showed up and shut the whole place down, he was shocked at how bad things had gotten.
Maybe lost and confused was the main things in my head going on, because I'm like, at that point, we had like, I guess, a couple hours to try to find a new apartment, I guess. But I mean, who can do that in a couple hours?
So Taro had to live in a hotel for several weeks and was eventually able to find a new apartment. But the damage was done.
I feel like PTSD for sure about getting ripped out of my own home again.
Residents who were forced out reported horrific living conditions. Some had exposed wires. Some had no walls or ceilings. Many told me they had black mold and still deal with long-term health impacts.
I felt so validated. I felt horrible for everyone who was experiencing it, but I was just waiting for it to happen.
Sarah Burke says the shutdown was no surprise. She was a tenant from 2014 to 2018 and says she had issues the whole time, beginning with crews peeling back paint near her sliding glass door.
That exposed black mold, rotting wood in the frame, and then all up on the wall as well.
She says she had water leaks and significant heating and AC issues.
Every summer, our AC would break like 2-3 times, and then it would take them 3 weeks, almost exactly to the day, 3 weeks to come in and fix it.
She spoke up and was able to move, but said it taught her a lot about knowing your rights as a tenant.
All they did was lie, and then they just kicked him out with nowhere to go.
As for Garcia, he is now living in a house and thankful to have received his money from the class action settlement. He hopes nobody has to go through something like this again.
It gives you kind of closure, a little bit of closure that they actually like had to be responsible for their actions, I feel like.
Now, the City R Group at Vista Shadow LLC owns Vista Shadow Mountain. City R Group is headquartered in New Jersey, Houston, and Israel. And Lori, they did not want to comment on the settlement or the future of this property.
All right, Kristen, thank you so much for that report. State law does outline laws for both tenants and landlords, and people need to read their lease closely before they sign it. Oklahoma law says if there's a problem that can be fixed, tenants need to give written notice. And after 14 days, tenants have a right to have money reimbursed if they fixed it, or they can move out 30 days later. If the property becomes unlivable, tenants have a right to give written notice and then move out immediately without consequence. Landlords are responsible for supplying essential services like trash removal, heat, hot and cold water, electricity, gas, and AC if written in the lease, or else a tenant is owed money or they can leave. The full list of the Landlord-Tenant Rights Act can be found at oklaw.org.
And we talked to City Councilor Lori Decter-Wright, who's been involved in getting help and answers for those tenants. She says the owners were given a 24-month window, and that ended last month. That means someone can now buy it. She says whoever buys it will need to prove all of the issues are fixed and up to code, and she hopes a local developer will buy it and fix it up.